with Dr. Monica Giolotti. So before we start the session, we'll just step back for a few moments of silence. Thank you.
So welcome everyone to the second day. Um, so let's start with a little bit of sharing about anything that we did, like any homework or whatever we discussed that we have to practice. So if anyone has done anything from that, just you can just mention, and that would be enough. And if there are any concerns or questions in the beginning from day before, that we can also take in the beginning before I start with the other things.
Yeah, of
Yes.
the hello everybody. So, of the practices, I resonated with the second practice, and while I was doing that, in fact, yesterday itself, when you were conducting it for, so I remembered Radha's prayer actually, because in that only when you were asking us to, each cell, and because behind that is the divine presence. So automatically kind of I just something in me connected to Radha's prayer, that it is for me it was that first practice I could not do it well, but the second one, yes, I found it for me.
Would you like to share Radha's prayer for us if you have it with you at the moment?
Radha's prayer, you mean? Okay,
Yeah.
I will just try that, whatever
Yes.
I remember. I don't have it with me, but we used to learn it actually, so I just forgot the first one. It says after that, that O thou, who is the Lord of my being and my God, receive my offering. Thine are all my thoughts, all my emotions, all the sentiments of my heart, all my sensations, all the movements of my life, each cell of my body, each drop of my blood. I am absolutely and altogether thine, thine without reserve. What thou wilt of me, that I shall be, whether thou choosest for me life or death, happiness or sorrow, pleasure or suffering, all that comes to me from thee bringing with it the supreme felicity. So it is like that. So everything, when you were saying, asking us, so it was like pulling each thing and actually, giving it to the divine. So it justifies the title that way, that giving yourselves up to the divine. So that way, yeah.
Yeah.
After many years, actually,
Mm.
just would like to mention that at one point of time, I used to do this prayer a lot, and it was like the stage when probably I was wanting only the divine and nothing else. But meanwhile, whatever the life and all its things. So then one point of time came when I was so much into life that into life means the external part of the of life. So I stopped doing this prayer because it was asking too much of. Because now at this point of time, probably I was not willing to have any sorrow or any that part of life which is not all bliss and joy, whatever. So I used to get scared of it, that no, I can't give that much power to mother, that okay, whatever you want to do with me, so you can do that. So I stopped doing it actually, and I would want the divine to take charge of me, but to my conditions, probably. Yeah. So yeah, so it was good to reconnect with that. So so it was actually good. So when it is about me and mine, then I think, for me, I could not do this prayer at that time. When you want only the divine, actually this prayer you can offer to the divine only when you want only the divine. Otherwise it is very difficult, it, what I experienced.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah. Anyone else wants to share their practice or whatever they resonated or did, or
Hi,
any
Monica.
homework? Yes, please. Yeah.
Um, Hello, everyone. So this was first time me reading the thought of writing. Again, it was a really mindful practice. The one thing I noticed was the urge that when I was, sorry, did I
Yeah.
get stuck? Just
Yes, your
a
internet
moment.
maybe. Yeah.
Is it better now?
Yeah. Now start again, please. Yes.
So the handwritten exercise was really mindful exercise for me, and I personally felt when I was writing fast, it was I was unable to connect to the words. But when I was writing slow, the whole meaning was very different. And I had challenges. Of course, most of them, I think, have challenges reading Savitri. And it was more of a mechanical practice for me. But yesterday, though, when I was reading those lines and writing them, I felt it was like my story. And I never, ever felt that, especially like all tasks to be done by the psychic. And those are some important lines where the strength would be occurred to us through the grace of divine. I felt it was like a personal opening for me, personal writing for me. And it never occurred to me. And I think that was really impact on me. And one thing I noticed is I've written it life rushing, and kind of gave me a very sacred pause to myself. And the another prayer by Sri Aurobindo in the task one, that was when you were explaining yesterday how the universe and the matter, it was just like a concept. Okay, Monica knows about it and she's telling us. But when I was writing, The pen I was holding is also divine. The paper is also divine. The clothes I'm wearing is also divine. Oh my God. Like, really? That was something hitting very deeply. And I had a question to this, Monica, is if everything is divine, then why the ego self is so dominant in this world? And I think that's the one which is creating more problems, greed and those. Would divine have no compassion to eradicate that, or is it again a free will? I always struggle with this concept, free will and all. I don't want to go through the mumbo jumbo of free will and all, but I really want to know if everything is divine, if divine himself sacrificed himself to the matter, then why are these forces which are so strong in us, which wants to rush and have this money, acquire these desires? Why does he allow that?
Mhm. Yeah, beautiful, very pertinent question. Yes. Yeah, and thank you for your sharing on handwriting also. I have personally, since childhood, benefited so much from handwriting, like just writing anything that I love. If I want to get it into my being, it enters through my writings. And this is such a gift if we have hands that are working and that can, write. I think it's such a grace. We don't realize what grace we are living with every day. So it's a beautiful way of letting the words enter your being, and not only enter in the thoughts and feelings, but enter your body consciousness. So handwriting, writing with your pen or pencil is that way. So I'm glad that you tried it out and that it resonated for you. And the other thing, before I go to your question, I want to talk about how you found a window into Savitri. To many of us, this is how it happens, that something or the other uh, opens a little window into Savitri. It feels like this is my story. And from there we can pick up the threads. It could be any canto, and for different people it'll be different cantos, different, books that are there in Savitri. And same happened with me. So I can really empathize what you're sharing, because at one point of time I said Savitri appeared Greek and Latin to me. It did not resonate. I knew it was something very profound, but I didn't know how to relate with it, right? But I still kind of kept reading it. And then came a time in my life where I was really in like a deep darkness, and I had to connect with my light. And there I connected with Savitri's words when Satyavan is about to die and she is grieving so badly, because I was also grieving in one sense. And then a voice comes to Savitri and says, "Remember why thou camest. This is not why you came. You came for your mission, and don't forget your mission. Go deep in yourself and find out your hidden self." And that is what I marched towards, because it gave me a window. So I can very well empathize with your window that opened up for you. And this is how mother opens up the doors, to Savitri. So pick up the threads from there and open Savitri. Yeah.
And I
And
want to add a
yes,
piece to it.
yes, go ahead.
Sorry, is since so I opened to Mother and Sri Aurobindo when I moved to Canada in 2021, and I was trying to connect to a community. I was trying to read Savitri, and I was doing more of mechanical stuff. And oh, I read so many experiences on YouTube. I've watched so many videos of you and Taru, and I was like, oh, everybody's talking about so much big, and I'm like stuck here. And I think somewhere I lost patience. Like mother is, maybe I'm not connected to mother, or maybe mother doesn't love me, or maybe I'm just there and like maybe Sri Aurobindo and mother are not my path. Maybe I have to try something else. The physical self was okay. If you don't get immediate answers from this, jump to something else. Maybe other guru or maybe other mode. But I think, but somewhere I kept going back, even if they were not answering, even if they were, kept writing every day. And yesterday was completely a small, again, it's not a big, it's a 0.1%. But I'm glad that how they show the way through the right time is having, and I built some faith in this. Even if it is 1%, I built that faith and I'm holding on to that faith.
Beautiful, beautiful. And mother says that, on the appearance, it appears like, how an egg is developing, like a chick is developing inside the egg. And for a long time, you don't see any development, like the egg remains the same size as from outside, right? You don't see what's happening inside. And from outside, you may wonder whether any development of the chick is happening or not, But then mother says, then one day it just breaks open and there is the chick out. So like that, our journey is, and we must not, give up too easily. And even if outwardly, appearance wise, we don't see any results, but as you rightly are doing, perseverance is the key. To keep at it is the key. So very happy for you. Very happy. Okay, so yeah, the part that you shared, that why is divine ruthless, or why so much freedom to the ego, what's happening in the world. So it's the design actually. The design, mother says, if you have heard the story of creation, actually that answered quite many things for me when I read the story of creation by the mother, retold by the mother, where she shares that the divine was only all by himself, like really nothing else. And then he manifested out of himself for the creation, purpose of creation, four powers. And what happened is that these four powers disconnected from the divinity, from their origin. Like imagine that if your father or mother, they give money to you to go get the bread and the butter. Now you have the money. You go out in the market and you forget that this money has been given to you by father and mother to get bread and butter. You loiter around the money and you forget the real task and you forget the home and everything, right? Because the money was with you. So something like that happened with these powers, that they disconnected from their divine origin and thought that we are all powers on our own. And that because of that disconnection, they inverted, like they became their darker self. So bliss, which came out for creation, it became suffering. That's why we suffer. And immortality became mortality, for example. Life became death. Consciousness became unconsciousness. So like that, all these powers upturned to their opposites. And then in the second layer, when the divine recognized what has happened, in the second layer of creation or the level of creation, mother says that the divine sent its own portion, like the sacrifice of the divine that we were talking of, its own portion, the divine mother came inside the matter, so that the matter can, because of that presence that is inside the matter, it can go up, uplift itself to the divine where it belongs. And that is where our psychic being or the immanent divine within us is so important. Because we all have been stones at one point of time. Then we became plants. Then we became animals, insects, dinosaurs, whatever, you name it, and we have been through that. That is our evolution, right? Now we have such a being present in us, which is so conscious that we can consciously take ourselves up to the divine where we actually belong, because we got disconnected. So mother says that this is the design at the moment of the creation. It didn't have to be this way, but somehow it's this way. That's what she shares. And all you souls, she says, all of you souls, you jumped along with the divine mother, saying, yes, I will go, I will go. We will bring, help mother bringing the creation back to the divinity, back to the source. So all of us have plunged into this adventure of darkness. We may have forgotten our vow that we gave to the mother, why we came to this life. But that's how it is. And that's why we face darkness. When mother used to work with the school children when the ashram school started and little children were there. One day, some child asked, Mother, why are we here? And mother then enlisted a couple of things. She said, we are here to turn darkness to light, suffering to bliss, hatred to harmony, hate to love. So take the opposite of what you were wondering, why is there so much hate and everything division around. That is why it is around, because the adventure is that. Adventure is from darkness to light. If there is no darkness, where is the light? What's the point of adventure, right? If I'm not lost, then there is no fun of coming back home. So it's something like that. And that is why they say that initially it appears like Maya, but when you understand truly, then it appears like play, like Leela. That it's divine's Leela. And nobody is suffering really. Divine himself is suffering, because in each part of existence is who? But the divine. So who is suffering? None but the divine himself. Because there is no other. So that is the larger picture. But what is our task as a human being? Because we are conscious. We are, an animal is not as conscious as us. We know what I am thinking. I know what I am feeling right now. And because of that consciousness that we have, and we are conscious of that consciousness, like I see my thought and I see that I am seeing my thought, right? Because of that consciousness, we have a special power. Like in earlier times, there used to be rishis who would give a look at something, and that something will burst into flames. Their consciousness has such power. So that is the consciousness we have. And at the moment, the problem is that consciousness is kind of helpless. It has gotten disconnected from its power. So if I look at something, I can't burn it up into flames, right? Because I don't have that power. But that is what the process that we are doing, self-giving. The moment I become conscious of a thought and a feeling, a little ripple in my being, which I know it's not serving any purpose, it's just hanging around, whether good or bad, at times may be good, but it's a heavy weight in my being. So the moment I look at it, become conscious of it, that is the willpower. With my will, I burn it up in flames. So that consciousness and power, they come back together. So I am no less, in one sense, not being arrogant, but we are no less in that sense, less than those Vedic rishis who with their consciousness, they did the magic. So that is what we have to do. First, the magic has to happen in our being. Later on, it can happen outside also. But in our being, if we can use that consciousness which sees the thought, which sees a feeling, which sees a burden or a vanity or a pride or a jealousy, anything that you become conscious of, with your will, you burn it up into flames and up they rise. So this is the sacrifice that we mentioned yesterday that is required of us. This is what we have to bring together. This is our task. That is why the creation is such as it is right now at the moment, because things, as mother says, things are not in their proper place. Ego has a purpose, but we carry the ego a bit too far. In the sense, imagine that I give you a ladder to get up to a roof or a terrace. Now you take that ladder from me and you step up the terrace, but you want to now carry the ladder up on the terrace also. It's not needed now. So ego is misplaced. We all have ego, which is necessary until a certain stage, but we overcarry it. At the terrace, you don't need the ego. You can leave the ladder behind, right? So we all have to come to a stage in our life where ego feels like a burden, like, why am I carrying this ladder at all? I don't need it now. Individuality is born, the temporary individuality is ready now. I have to now shed it. That's why, ego being shed. and our deeper being found, so that we can arise, because it is the deeper being that will rise up along with the lower consciousness. Mother says that the psychic is convinced that it has to rise up. So it helps the lower being to go up and up in flames, rise up to the divine, so that from the divine abundance come down, flooding our being, and everything in our being changes for good. So that is the process now we have to carry on as human beings. That's the design. That's what I understand so far. That's the design.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, anyone else wants to share anything from yesterday? Okay, so let's go ahead then. Let's go ahead. Today I want to talk about more going deeper into the self-giving process. And when I felt this process in my own being, then I wondered that somehow Agni came to me. Agni, Sri Aurobindo talks about Agni. Somehow Chit Tapas came to me. And when I researched in Sri Aurobindo's words, then it really, really resonated very much about the process itself. Because there Sri Aurobindo says in the secret of the Veda, he shares that Agni is the being or is the divine will. This is the will we were talking of, that the moment I become conscious of something, because of the will in me, I burn it up. So Sri Aurobindo in the secret of the Veda decodes this for us, and he says it's the inherent Agni in us who is the priest of the sacrifice. Now, these are words which in the beginning may sound very codified or mystical, like I don't understand. But when you see the process happening in your being, then it's easier to fathom it. So you see that what's happening is that the moment you will it to go up, any movement you will it to go up, it is the Agni acting in you. And what is the Agni doing? Agni is like a priest of sacrifice. It carries forward the sacrifice to the divine. Now it makes sense, no? So it's the force, it's the divine will which is present in us for carrying forward the sacrifice up to the divine, which is why we are born. We are born for this sacrifice. And that's where Agni is called the Purohita, the priest of the sacrifice. So we'll read some words of Sri Aurobindo where he decodes this for us, which is amazing. Like it gives us goosebumps that he's not writing something which is far away from us. He's writing something which is happening in our being, right? So he says, the whole process of the universe is in its very nature a sacrifice. Now you see, each line is making sense. The whole process of the universe is a sacrifice. What happens? A seed sprouts, it gives itself, and here when a seed is sprouting, again a lot of sacrifices happening. Sun rays are being sacrificed. Nutrition from the soil is being sacrificed for the growth of the seed. Water is being sacrificed. And then the sprout comes. It takes the shape of a tree. And the leaves are being sacrificed again back to the ground. Flowers, fruits, everything is being sacrificed. When insects die, we die, our bodies die, right? They are being sacrificed back to where they belong. So Sri Aurobindo says the whole process of the universe is in its very nature a sacrifice. A little insect being eaten by a big insect. Sacrifice, no? Food chain. Huh? The bigger insect or animal being eaten by even a bigger animal or an insect. Now, the biggest, most animal may not be eaten up by big animals, but when the body decomposes, little insects and worms and everything come and they eat on it. Right? So again, a sacrifice. So he says voluntary or involuntarily. We may not want the sacrifice to be there, but it's there. You can't help it. self-fulfillment by self-immolation. To grow by giving is the universal law, he says. That which refuses to give itself is still the food of cosmic powers. When we don't want to give ourselves, death comes and takes the being away, which we think we are. We are devoured by death, right? So he says that which refuses to give itself is still the food of the cosmic powers. The eater eating is eaten, is the formula. It is only when the law is recognized and voluntarily accepted that this kingdom of death can be overpassed, and by the works of sacrifice, immortality made possible and attained. All the powers and potentialities of the human life are offered up in the symbol of a sacrifice to the divine life in the cosmos. So this is what we have to do. This is a conscious sacrifice. Life has to become a conscious sacrifice. Why? Because we are in a state to do that. And it's joy. It's joy because you become burdenless. There is no burden that you are carrying. You are roaming around empty and yet full of potentialities. But you are not sticking or holding on to anything that comes through you. You know that you are just being a channel and nothing more. And whatever is the energy that is flowing through you, manifesting through you, it's just like cosmic energy, universal energy. There's nothing that you can own or possess. The flow has to go on, carry on. So if there is anything which is out of focus, you please share. Okay, now I want to push us a little bit more into the process before we do the actual practice, which is the power of Agni in us. I have just prepared something just for us to visualize, and let me try if I can share that thing with you, which may give us a visual perspective. Yeah. I hope this is clear to us. So look at these pictures, basically. Wording I'll try to say. So this is the Agni, the divine will. The moment I become conscious of something in my being, I have the will to give it up. That's the divine will present in me. That's the Agni, the flame, the priest of the sacrifice. Now, this is how the movement can happen. This is one of the ways in which it can be visualized. Like each part of your being has these little kind of flames, or like we were discussing yesterday, whatever you see, you become conscious of it, you give it up. And the offering goes up and up and up. There is no end. Like it's topless. There is no top. There is no covering. Like it goes above your head and even up the offering goes. So Sri Aurobindo says, Agni, the priest of the sacrifice, the slayer of the powers of darkness, the finder of the world, of the sun of truth, of his radiant herds and of his luminous waters, he is the seer in us, who is increased by the clarities of right thought and speech. Again, these are some visuals to make us understand the process. And the more we rise above our head, we see that our roots can be above our head, in the being above our head, because the space that you see around me, for example, or the space that you see around yourself, around your body, you also are that space. And that space is not empty, it's full of potentialities. But because of my identification with the body, I am limited. So the more I rise above my head, the more I can plunge my roots above in my true self. And the more the powers come into me and they can have the spread in the mortal life below. So this is what is the inverted tree, the Ashwatha tree, as they say in the Upanishads, that you plunge your root in the divine and the spread in is below in the mortal world. Right? Agni is the tapas, the energizing power of the consciousness force. He is fire in the material principle. Sri Aurobindo says to that extent that desire and impulses that are present in us, they are also a manifestation of Agni. Because what does a desire want? A desire wants to fulfill itself. Right? And there is a true fulfillment each one of us is seeking. But that can happen only in the divine. So a desire is a distorted perception of that fulfillment. Like by through this or that, I will get the fulfillment. But actually it is the Agni which is flaming in us, which actually seeks for the fulfillment, true fulfillment. And again, he is the mental inspiration, the willpower. He devours everything he gets in the mind principle. And in the life principle, it is the desire, like you want to possess, you want to, you crave. So that is the principle of Agni. It wants to devour, but that is a distortion when we are living in the ego sense. Agni, the divine will force or power of consciousness. So note this word. This is not just mere word. It is possible in practice to make it happen. Power of consciousness. The consciousness in us as a power. And this is the power we will be using to give ourselves of each element of our being up. And this image that I have drawn for all of us, this image is not something which is just for like aesthetic beauty. Each thread of our being is offering itself up. From top to bottom. And in this offering, you see that the more you connect with the consciousness above your head, the more you remain there stationed, since every part of the being is offered up, up, up. There comes a time that the more you live in the station above head, you see that there is a descent that takes place of abundance, of richness, of powers, of siddhis, of whatever you can say, of fullness. And that is what opens our chakras. From top to bottom, it opens our chakras. It opens our true consciousness. The lid is broken. The wall separating our outer being and the inner being is broken because of this giving up. Agni is a god. He is of the devas, the shining ones, the masters of light. Why masters of light? See, what is Agni doing in us? Whatever is dark in us, we are giving it up, burning in that flame, and it's lit up. So there is no obscurity hidden from Agni. The moment consciousness sees it in the hiding in the corner, it puts light there and it burns up. Again, you look at one corner, there is something hiding there, you see there and it burns up. So it brings light, masters of light. He is free and unbound or binds himself only in the play. And then Sri Aurobindo says that whatever Agni touches, he is not becoming impure, that whatever he is touching. And this we see in material life also. Whatever Agni burns, that's why we use it for havans and yagnas and everything. Whatever it burns, it purifies it. It itself is not impurified by that, whatever it's burning. So he says he's inherently pure and he's not touched or soiled by the impurities on which he feeds. So your anger, your jealousy, your stupidities, your falsehood, your ego, think of the baddest thing in yourself. The moment Agni touches it, it purifies it and uplifts it up to the divine. He enjoys the play of good and evil and raises or forces the evil towards goodness. He burns in order to purify. This we see, like when we have done too much of havoc on earth, wildfires happen and forest fires happen. It's like a clearing of the ground, so everything is cleared, like sanctified in one sense. The bad that we do to the earth, it's sanctified in one sense. So the ground is ready again for a new growth. Even farmers at times, they burn up their earlier grounds so that new crop can be taken care of there. He destroys in order to save. And now he says, when the body of the sadhak is burned up with the heat of tapas, this was the tapas that we were talking of. You become conscious of each cell, each atom of your being, and you burn it up with your tapas, the will. When the body of the sadhak is burned up with the heat of the tapas, it is Agni that is roaring and devouring and burning up in him the impurity and the obstructions. So Chit is that power, consciousness is that power of which we have to become aware of in ourselves. Yeah, I think that's it. That's the main thing that I wanted to share here. That this is the process that's happening in our being when we are doing this self-giving in the body. And Agni is the priest of sacrifice. If time is there, we would later maybe read some words when we are doing the practice from Sri Aurobindo's Secret of the Veda, where he talks about Agni as the divine will carrying forward the sacrifice. Yeah, so we take a break here and see if things are not going just overhead and we are connected with whatever is being discussed. If there are any questions or challenges, please share. Otherwise, there's no point. So even if challenges are there, please share.
Monica, could you connect this with an example, which is maybe personal or maybe in any sadhaks you've seen?
Connect what
Decipher.
example?
The Agni and the reflection on offering,
Yeah.
like every bit of it.
Yes, of course, I'm here for that only, for connecting it with the example. So, see, it's very simple. The words may sound very profound, and at times it may feel that, no, I'm not getting it. But what we were, the practice that we did, the second practice that we did yesterday, and which we'll do also today in 15 minutes, is that when I close my eyes and I get into the body, the moment I close my eyes and tune into the body, we see that there is a darkness in the being, right? It's all black. There's hardly anything that I can see really, but I can feel, I can sense. And with that sense that I have, I move in my body either randomly or from top to bottom or bottom to top. And the moment I become conscious of each and every part of my being, I give it up to the divine. Like I offer it up, as we were doing in the self-giving practice yesterday. So the moment you become conscious of a part of your body, in a sense, not like you're seeing it, some people may see it, but you become aware of it. You're conscious of that part where you are focusing, concentrating. That is consciousness. That is Chit. And Agni comes next. Now, the moment I become conscious of it, with the will that I have in me, that now I want to offer everything to the divine, with that will, I offer it up to the divine. Like in a movement, I offer it up. I burn it up like camphor, burning it up and offering it up to the divine. That is Agni. So what I was discussing in the beginning, that rishis had a power. The moment they looked at something, they would say, bhasm something, like you go to bhasm, you become an ash. And that person would actually turn to ash, right? So that is the power of our consciousness if we will it. And our will is Agni. But usually we don't will it. Because as Meenakshi was sharing in the beginning, that you want to, clutch something in your life and you don't want to give it away. You feel that that's precious, I want to keep it. But now with understanding, we know that the more I keep it, the more it becomes a burden in my life and cause of my disappointment and suffering. And I'm not able to live a full life if I clutch it more and more. Because everything belongs to the divine. So each part of your being, you give it consciousness, you become aware in the body of each atom of your existence. You burn it up with your will, like this Rishi seeing it and then burning it up. And that the moment you burn it up and give it to the divine is the power of Agni, or the tapas, chit tapas, consciousness power. This is the power which we have to actually cultivate, because in existence, this has gotten distorted. And Sri Aurobindo says that in existence, in material world, we become aware of something, but we feel we are powerless. Like, right? I become aware of jealousy, for example, in me. I become aware of ego in me, but there is hardly anything I can do. So there is a powerlessness associated with it. But with our conscious wanting, with the will that we effect into that consciousness, what happens is, the moment I become conscious of some movement in my being, I can burn it up and give it to the divine. That is the power of Agni. That is the priest of sacrifice. That is the Purohita. That is the divine will. So nothing more beyond that at this moment we are trying to understand. And I think it's simple enough to understand if you look at it that way. Isn't it? Is it clear now?
Yes, Monica.
Yeah? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Makes
very
sense.
practical. Nothing.
Okay.
And the more you do in practice, you will see that it actually, with your inner sensations, you can feel this movement up of your.
Up.
Actually, I wanted to show you one more image. Just a moment. Yeah. Just a moment. Yeah. So while this sublimation or this movement of going up has to continue in us, like if we are serious about it, then it just should continue as much as we can do. So it's like, I actually tried to put a video here, but it didn't work. So this is how it's like your being, each particle of your being is given up in fumes, and the fumes of course go up and up. So it's a very symbolic thing that when we burn agarbatti or incense, it goes up, right? As if it's offering itself up to the divine. So first this image, because you connect with that image, sublimation of the being. And then one more image I wanted to show you, where when we are lying down, when we are sleeping like this. So again, this is what I created, whatever I could manage with my ideas, that when you are lying down, it's a very good practice, and maybe tonight, if we want to do while sleeping, you can do that. So while sleeping, usually how we sleep, some of us may sleep by concentrating on the divine, remembering the mother, or maybe at times we'll sleep with scattered thoughts, something that happened through the day you're not happy about, or maybe you're happy about. So you live in those thoughts and then you go off to sleep. But there can be a much better way of sleeping, which is either concentrating on the divine consciously, or in a constant self-offering, like that offering is continuously offering from the being is happening even while you are lying down. And it's a beautiful process if you actually try to do it in the body. It's like as if you are elevating yourself up, and the quality of your dreams also change if you sleep like that. I felt that the dreams change, the quality of dreams is very different if you sleep very consciously. And in earlier times, Christian nuns and mystics, they would be seen elevated. They are like levitating. They're in meditation pose and they are floating above the ground. Many people saw them levitating. Why? It's no mumbo jumbo. They are so uplifted because of their constant communion in the divine, that the body has lost all the burden and weight. So the levitation is possible. And at times those nuns could not control their levitation. So much ecstasy and joy was there, like they are floating above and they can hit somewhere, but they can control it to that extent, the ecstasy. Yeah. So yeah, now we can take more thoughts and questions. Please go ahead.
As you said, this process of visualizing Agni, but my question is, how do I apply this when I'm talking to someone, when there's some a stupid conversation or a mindful conversation. When I'm at work, like I'm at home, I'm by myself, I feel these practices are really good on me. But when I'm in with people, especially with at office or family events, we are just there, and how can we apply this?
Yeah, yeah. So somebody asked mother this question, that mother, when I am all by myself, not engaged in the action or interaction, it's easy to focus on you. And but I'm when I'm playing tennis, for example, that person asked, when I'm playing tennis, my whole concentration is on that thing that I'm playing, and I can't remember you that time. So it's almost as good as your question, what you were just asking, that you can't focus on that self-giving when you are interacting with that person. Hmm? So mother answered that it's okay, completely fine. She said, when you are engaged in anything which requires your attention, concentration, concentrate on that. Be fully there, no problem. And whenever you have gaps, like you're playing tennis and you have 5 minutes of a water break or anything, you're, soaking, like clearing up your sweat or anything, then remember me. So it's completely fine. And that's the process how we begin. Like it can't be just from 0 to 100. We can't do that. It's not possible. So whenever you have empty pockets of time, do this practice, and also practice this with open eyes. Like when you are walking, for example, you're walking, trying to get groceries from outside departmental store, you're not really interacting with anyone, you're just walking, roaming around. In that, try to be conscious of this self offering which is going up and up in your being. And then a person comes, talks to you, or the vendor or whatever, then interact with that person. But the moment you get time back to yourself, again back to this self giving, and not as earlier we used to do, scattered in your random thoughts and stories. So that's how we can go ahead. Completely fine. That's how we go about.
Okay. Thank you for that. One thing I wanted to tell you is, since I started meditating on Savitri, or on breath, one thing, and incorporating these practices, I feel I want to be alone most of the time. And sometimes, again, the ego self kind of makes me feel judged, saying that it's not good, you're trying to escape. But again, I'm not escaping responsibilities. So it's a complicated conflict in myself. I feel good when I'm alone, but at the same time, there are responsibilities comes with marriage, as a daughter, as a employee and all. But again, I do all them with mindful. But again, there's a ego interaction, which ego, or I don't know which one is that. But there is, no, this is not good. I don't know if that's healthy way to look at it, or maybe I'm just confused.
Hmm. So first of all, this is a very good sign that you are falling in love with your aloneness. It's very important. Very, very. In fact, imagine if all of us would start loving our aloneness, so many marriages would not happen, so many children would not be born, so many celebrations which waste so much of resources would not happen, right? Because the many a times the reason we marry is because we can't be with ourselves. It's just like too boring.
True. I realized this after marriage only.
Yeah, that's okay. We all do mistakes. Kidding you. No, anything can become a path in yoga. So no problem if you're married or if I'm married, doesn't matter. It's very secondary. But yeah, so this is first of all a very good sign that you are loving your aloneness. It's a very good sign because somewhere you are getting that delight from within. The delight for which we go outside and run to outwardly pleasures, right? So it's a very good sign. So don't take it in any other sense. Secondly, at the same time, we are also present in this world. And it is this life that we have to make divine, right? So whatever fruits of our aloneness and solitude that we reap, in your aloneness and solitude, the more you practice, you will reap the fruits of it. So those fruits, what will happen? They will come out slowly and they will change your interactions in life. Like a discernment will come, whether I should speak this word or not speak this word. Okay, maybe out of 100 words, you think that now only 2 words are necessary. So you will speak less. You will interact with lesser people because most of our interactions are just futile. They just don't serve anything. They're just like vital exchange and it's not required. It's just excitement and just sharing or gossiping, which is not required, not doing anything good, but we are still engaged because we have nothing else to do. So now you have something to do which is very precious for you. The moment you get a chance, you go back to that precious thing, which is very, very good. You have a very good employment. And within our being, wonders are waiting. Wonders are waiting, abundance is waiting, but we don't give it time. So spend time with it. And at the same time, the moment there is an interaction which is necessary, you bring a different light in that interaction. Like a flower, a flower, no matter where you put it, it gives its fragrance out. It doesn't have to tell, oh, I am a flower and look at my fragrance. No, right? So you become a flower because you are more in touch with your roots, which are in the divine. You are nourishing your roots from the divine. The flower is blossoming. And the moment you interact with the world and do any worldly interaction, that blossom of the fragrance comes out. That's our task. So don't feel confused. There's no need of confusion. This is our primary task, what you now have discovered for you. This will help people around you. And through your presence, maybe, something else changes in the circumstances.
Like, for example, Monica, yesterday, I used to enjoy some kind of events in the past, but lately I'm saying no to such events, but it came from a very close friend of mine, and I said no to it. But immediately the person was taken aback. Maybe I put it assertively or what, I don't know. But this guilt again, yesterday when I was asking you a question, end of the day, I offered that guilt, or mother, just take it. I don't know if I did right or wrong, but I said this. But the person is stopped talking to me, and that kind of staying at the back of the mind is they maybe got offended, or it's just I'm saying no. In the past I used to, oh, maybe what other person might think, that's
Yeah.
that's something I
This is
find.
also beautiful. This is also beautiful. You have to have the power of saying no. I think it was Sri Ravi Shankar, Acharya, Sri Ravi Shankar, who said that the day you lose respect is the day you authentically start living. So, because you are not saying no for any wrong purpose, you are saying because you honor the presence within you, and you know that somehow that interaction or whatever at the moment is not right for you. So we have to be really shameless in living an authentic life. Shamelessness is needed. Otherwise, forget about it. And even that person who may behave a little weirdly, see, why would that person, say, imagine that you want to give yourself a precious time. And I, in my own sanctuary, also give myself that precious time. Then I would have empathy with why you want that alone time, or I would actually respect your no. But if I am also not used to giving myself a precious time, then I can become mad at you because we all are just clingy to each other, as we discussed yesterday. So that person, if he is weird to you or she is weird to you, they are weird to you in their ignorance. And they will have to endure the pain of you saying no. And that is a growth for them. That is an emotional maturity for them. So let them also mature, please. And the moment, as you said, that the moment you observed any guilt, because earlier you used to say yes, 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 to please any other people around you. The moment you observe that guilt, offer it up to the mother. Because you didn't do it for any selfish so-called reason. You did it for the right purpose. So keep offering any guilt or anything that comes, and be sure that you will have to become shameless if you want to live an authentic life. And a lot more no's will be needed. uh, if you really want to live a precious, authentic life.
Yeah, I mean, how crazy is it? Since childhood, we are told to follow something, and
Yeah.
from now within, I get to know something is very different. To unlearn what I learned, I think it's oh my
True.
God.
Yeah, it's a new
Really,
thing that
really,
we have to learn. Yeah, to say no. And to
yeah,
let people be if they are going through some they'll also get emotional maturity in the process. For
yeah.
a long time, I'll share my personal story just to help. For a long time, my father and mother felt that I had become very weird because I stopped going to all the marriage celebrations, and because I didn't feel any meaning there, and it was just like for me a waste of time. So I stopped saying going there, and I said a lot of no's to every celebration. I would say a no, and they would say, "Tu pagal ho gayi hai? Have you gone mad or something? Like, we are living in a world. Human being is a social animal, whatever." But now, after many years, actually, my father recently said to me that you have done what we all actually should do, but we could not do. You have removed the rubbish out of your life. That's what he said. So,
Wow.
so I was also amazed, like, wow, I didn't expect that to happen, but yeah. So it's okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you so much.
yeah.
That really helps.
Thank you. Yeah, Meenakshi, you wanted to share something?
No, no, at that point of time when Monica was asking about that, remembering the divine in the midst of any conversations or any interactions. So I think again it is a matter of practice along with other practices, because it won't come just like that. मुझे लगता है जैसे छोटे बच्चे होते हैं तो बहुत छोटे बच्चे जहाँ भी जाते हैं दे विल टेक देयर पेरेंट्स अलोंग विद देम, ईदर फादर और द मदर। तो वो लेके जाते हैं उनको, और जहाँ जाते हैं उसके बाद जाके चाहे वो भूल जाते हैं, बिकॉज दे आर बिजी विद द एक्साइटमेंट्स एंड एवरीथिंग एल्स, बट एट द बैक ऑफ माइंड दे हैव इट दैट मेरी मम्मी बैठी है वहाँ पे और दे गो फॉर टेनिस एंड समथिंग, तो वो है वहाँ पर पूरा का पूरा कंप्लीट करेंगे, देन दे विल लाइक कम। सो जस्ट लाइक दैट मदर ने बोला कि एटलीस्ट बिफोर समथिंग और आफ्टर समथिंग इतना वाला, तो वो ग्रेजुअली विद प्रैक्टिस। और ये जो गिल्ट वाली जो बात है व्हेन वी आर दैट सेइंग नो और समथिंग लाइक दैट, उसमें भी मुझे लगता है दैट when we are offering it beforehand, then something happens that वो simultaneously something is melting that, because because now it is not out of ego you are saying no, out of your own selfish something, but it is because it is the way to be। तो वो थोड़ा सा, बट इट रिक्वायर्स कंसिस्टेंट प्रैक्टिस। ऐसा एक दिन में नहीं होने वाला। यू हैव टू रियली इनवाइट द डिवाइन जस्ट बिफोर, जस्ट लाइक मदर से स्टेप बैक। सो व्हेन यू स्टेप बैक, सो यू इनवाइट मदर, सो it happens that during the course of conversation you will forget, but then you have already told, तो वो कहीं ना कहीं वो चीज़ ग्रेजुअली वो एक्सपैंड करती है, and then it takes, so I mean to take completely be taken by the divine, definitely it is a long term practice।
Beautiful. Thanks, Meenakshi.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, please go
Yeah.
ahead.
The difficulty comes when I meditate or journal or pray. There are periods when I'm really there, and when I'm not there, I know it that hey, I'm not there. I try to focus on breathing to anchor myself, but sometimes I'm like, okay, got it, I'm done, and then I get up. You get what I'm trying to say? And those periods, I'd like to think in retreats and all, they are longer, but of course, when I'm practicing on my own, they are shorter periods. The frequency of the periods of connection is higher, but the duration is shorter. And I don't know if it's because I do not have a lot of intense concentration. Like, I know I do not concentrate so much, even studies and all that jazz.
So what's the question, Suhani? Is there any question there?
Yeah, so my question is, do I have to consciously work on increasing the duration? Or is it okay if I know I'm not there and I'm like, okay, forget it?
I mean, there is nothing like have to. There is nothing like have to. It has to become so precious to you that you don't want to not be there. Just that. And it's maybe a matter of time for each one of us. So there comes a time in our life that nothing else is more precious. In the sense, when I say nothing else is more precious, I'm referring to our scattered mind, which is lost in the world and the promises from the world. Otherwise, whenever you are there in the interactions, there also is the divine, the other person, the other being with where you are interacting. So you can be fully there and give yourself the best, the best of yourself that you can give, offer. But regarding concentration, there is no have to. It's just a matter of your loving it. Mother says love is the power of transformation. And I feel I can get a sense of it now, why mother would say that. Because if you fall in love with self-giving, it's just like you just want to do it all the time, like happens with lovers. If you fall in so-called love with the people, you just want to be with them all the time. There is no have to. There you don't ask a question, should I be with this person now 10 hours of a day, or should I be with him 2 hours of a... There's no have to, right? So you just want to be with that person throughout. That's love. That's what we call love or lust, whatever. But in this sense, the more you fall in love with the communion with the divine within, the more you want to be there, more and more, more and more. May it be short durations or long durations, it doesn't matter. But you want to maintain a continuity because of that love, falling in love. And that love is the transformative agency which will change your nature. So if at the moment there are other things which interest us better than this self-giving or concentrating on the mother or giving yourself up, then by all means feel free to do that.
Like, more than interest,
Huh.
I think it's just the habit of the vital. To
Yeah.
be used to, honestly, TV, phone, or
Yeah.
even reading for that, reading other books, after a point they get like, there are times when I know I'm bored. I'm just doing it because I'm conditioned and I'm used to. It's not that I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so more
Yeah, it's
than
okay. There will come a time where you'll get disgusted with it. So if consciously you don't want to go deeper within and do the practice right now, although you know that that is what you should be doing, that's completely fine. Although it's still a kind of a waste of time, precious time, I would say, but it's okay. We can't help it at times. It happens. We can't help it. So there will come a time that you will just get disgusted with it. And mother says that there comes a time where you get disgusted with your old self. You can't tolerate it anymore. And then with conviction, you pick up the threads again. But the thing is, life is short. Now, we don't know whether before that conviction comes, this bodily life is taken away from us. We don't know, no matter how young I may be, right? So we have to know that wherever we stop the threads here, wherever we pause the thread here in this bodily life, From that position, you will be carrying on. So if there is a work which is left, if your mind is scattered in this life at the moment while you leave the body, you can be sure that when you pick up the threads, you'll start with all the previous stuff that you have left. Although you knew in the previous life what is to be done, but you didn't do it. And that is why our masters like Kabir, that is why they have stressed so heavily on, oh my God, you are laughing, celebrating, but I am weeping. Because he knows that you are wasting and loitering around the time. And this precious human life, Buddhism, again and again in Buddhism, they talk precious human life, precious human life. But we are very obstinate people. We are very stubborn. Our lower nature is very stubborn. And as you said, even if I may know it's the habit of the vital, at times it's hard to give up. There's nothing else you can do. So go on, enjoy the habit of the vital. There will come a time where you will get disgusted with it, or a happening will happen in life which will pull you towards the right direction. So wait for that. I would say, wait for that. It's never too late in eternity. Yeah.
I just want to add on to Suhani's question.
Yeah, please.
Yesterday in the task 2, the Savitri lines, there was one beautiful line. The lofty burning of desire had sunk. And I think everybody gets to that line in their own life path. And yesterday, even saying no to my friend was this, the burning of desire to say no and to not to go to that event. I think ashamed of vanity of separate self, that was actually the how naturally the desire goes away. And the reflection of we noticing that, I think that gives us courage to go on.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yes. So Kabir ji says, Lakdi jal koila bani, koila jal bhayo hai rakh. I'll explain in English also. Lakdi jal koila bani, koila jal bhayo hai rakh, मैं अभागन यूं जली ना कोयला बनी ना राख. So for a long time, this is what is our condition. He says the first line, lakdi jal koyla bani. So when a wood burns, it makes coal, and coal can be used, right? Koyla jan bhayo hai rakh. And when coal further burns, it turns into ash. Now, again, ash is something which can be used further, and it has no intensity left, like it's completely cold, like what Monica was sharing, the lofty desire, the intensity of desire had sank. So either you reach up to the coal state or you reach up till the ash state. But our state is like this, what Kabirji shares in the next line, मैं अभागन, like me, poor fellow. Abhagan, I don't know how to say it in English. Usually, we burn it in such a way, neither here nor there, neither coal nor ash. So for a long time, our state is like that, which is okay. It's a long, dim preparation is human's life. So what can we do? It's fine, but do whatever you can do. Do whatever little we can do. The difference between a genius in any sense and a regular lay person is just a matter of this much effort every day. There is a book, Learn Any Language, something like that. There is a book by a very nice author. And he says that the amount of time we waste in our day, he says that even if we take out 5 to 10 minutes of every day wasteful time that we waste our energies in, we'll actually be able to learn one new language every year. So now it's just a matter of putting a little effort, either in spiritual journey or outwardly. Just put that little effort. And why? Because we are human beings and we are supposed to put that little effort. Otherwise, what's the difference between me and an animal who is also eating, who is also hunting for food, going fetching food, who is also eliminating, who is also reproducing, breathing, living life? What is the difference between animal and me? So think about it. We have the opportunity and we have to make that little effort, if not in this life, next life. So is that all for today? Any question further? Because I want to close with the practice, if it's okay with us, to give it a practical sense. Yeah. Okay. So let's again just reminding ourselves not to sleep, be active, be vigilant, and relax yourself in the chair or wherever you are, and keep the body in a relaxed, comfortable position. If possible, then you can lean back in your chair or something like in a comfortable pose. Close your eyes, tune in to the body. Mind's home is in the body, not in the thoughts. So tune in with the body sensations. Come back home. Use the breath as a thread if you like. At the moment, we won't give much attention to thoughts. Put everything in the cloud of forgetting. Forget every worldly thing. Nothing matters right now. Just come back to your body, your palace. And in a movement where you become aware of the whole being at once, the whole of the body at once, offer each part of your body up above. If you are confused about the practice, offer the confusion also above. If you are having thoughts at the moment of unfitness, maybe I can do it, not do it, oh, this is not so okay for me, whatever, all the things that you notice within your being, burn it up, burn it all up with your will, with your consciousness. And notice the movement of burning up in your body. The fumes, the incense fumes, or the burning up, rising up from foot, soles, calf, knee, thighs, your buttocks, your waist, upper part of the body. Whatever you notice, burn it up, offer it up. Your throat, your thoughts, your heart, entangled emotions, half-done stories with loose threads. Everything, just offer it up. Your face, movements in the face, sensations in the face, your hair, back of the neck, and everything is just rising up above your head. The flames are rising above, up and going beyond your head in a unceasing offering of the being. You are completely in the body. And the moment you become conscious of each part of your being, any part of the being, body, thought, feeling, sensation, don't spare anything. Burn it all up, offer it up with your will, Agni. Let it purify your being fully. Any thoughts come, put them in the cloud of forgetting. Burn it up. Don't think your thoughts. Feel the body sensations as you offer up. And go back again to those body parts. Check for sensations. If anything you notice, you offer it up. Come to your head, come to your heart, your hands, your arms, and collaborate in the unceasing offering up. And let your consciousness rise above the head as the flames also rise above your head. And above your head, get in touch with the vastness of yourself, which also is you. The vastness above your head. Stay there for a while, where the flames are rising up above, going beyond. And the higher you go above, and the vaster you go above your head, keep going further. Higher and vaster. Higher is upwards, and vaster is your left, right, south, west, above your head. The vast field that you have above your head. That is also you. And if you become aware of, again, some movement in the body or thoughts or feelings, come back down again. Become conscious of that movement and again offer it up with your willpower, with your Agni, with your tapas. Keep the process on, and I'll just read a few lines on Agni by Sri Aurobindo from The Secret of the Veda. Agni is the most important. He is also the purifier. When he devours and enjoys, then also he purifies. He is the fire that prepares and perfects. He is equally the will in prana, the dynamic life energy. And in that energy, it performs the same functions. Devouring, enjoying, purifying, preparing, assimilating, forming. He rises upwards always and transfigures his powers into the energies of mind. Our passions and obscure emotions are the smoke of Agni's burning. If he is the will in our nervous being and purifies it by action, he is also the will in the mind, clarifies it by aspiration. He leads the active energies towards light. Agni then is the god who has to become conscient in the mortal. This is the practice that we are doing. Agni has to become conscient in the mortal. Therefore, is he the priest of offering, strongest or most apt for sacrifice. He who all powerful follows always the law of truth. Alone of the brilliant gods, he burns bright and has full vision in the darkness of night, no less than in the splendors of day. Agni manifests divine potentialities in a death-besieged body. Agni brings them to effective actuality and perfection. And he creates in us the luminous forms of the immortals. Agni, the divine will, is that which stands behind the human will in its works. And in the conscient offering, he comes in front. This is what we are doing. In the conscient offering, he comes in front. He is the priest set in front, Purohita. He guides the oblation and determines its effectiveness. Let everything burn itself up in you with your conscious will, your consciousness and its power. Chit tapas. And let it rise high up and break the lid above the mind, which keeps us separated from our larger being. And enter and touch your larger self above your head and all around it. Concentrate and focus your consciousness there, above your head, around your head, around the body. It's all you. You are enveloping your body. You have taken a body. You are not just your body. And it's the same consciousness which becomes aware in you and burns things up. It's the same consciousness which is there in each one of us. There is no separation, no wall. And that's our oneness, that's our larger being. Slowly, try to half open your eyes. Maybe you can start with looking at the ground or wherever. And see if you can still focus above your head. Purifying your body, rising up with the flames, and taking a station above and around your head. Open your eyes a little more and see if that is still possible. And get a sense of the feeling that you get in the center of your chest. That's the psychic being, if you can sense it. The larger self and the psychic being are both connected. So when you touch your larger self, the bigger self, the true self that you are. You activate or you call the psychic in front. So this was just again a taste of practice which you can choose to do, not to do. That's up to you. And the more we practice it, the more we purify ourselves of all the impurities that are there from time to time. And also the more we connect with our true self, the larger self, through which we are one with others. And slowly we stop to feel lonely, because at times when we are not interacting with people, we may feel lonely, some of us. So the more we connect with the larger self, we feel one with others, whether we are talking to them or not. It doesn't matter. We feel their pain, we feel their joys, we feel their grief, because it's the larger self, which is the same in all. The space in my house and the space in your house, it's an ever connected, interconnected space. There is no separation. So that's the consciousness, which is our true self, which is the same in all. And before we end, I want to just read a few lines by the mother. Mother says, if you go deep enough, you will find a very clear answer. If you go deep enough into a sufficiently complete silence from all outer things, you will find within you that flame about which I often speak. And in this flame, you will see your destiny. You will see the aspiration of centuries which has been concentrated gradually to lead you through countless births to the great day of realization. That preparation which has been made through thousands of years and reaching its culmination. And as you will have gone very deep to find all this, all your incapacities, all your weaknesses, everything in you that denies and does not understand, all that you will feel that is not yourself. It is like just a garment which serves in some way and which you have put on for the time being. But you will understand that in order to be truly capable of profiting fully by the opportunity to do what you wanted to do, what you have aspired to do for such a long time, you must gradually bring the light, the consciousness, the truth into all these obscure elements of the external garment, the outer being, so that you may be able to understand integrally why you are here. And not only that you may understand, but that you may be able to do it. For centuries, it has been waiting for this opportunity, Mother says. And then you enter immediately into the marvelous. You see to what an extent it is extraordinary. That things which one has so long hoped for, things for which one has prayed so much, made so many efforts, suddenly a moment comes when they are realized. In that, it is the moment when great things are done. One must not miss the opportunity. So let's not miss the opportunity and put our little effort that is required of us. So today, again, I'll share one document with you on the group and with individually with all of you. Little bit of homework, little bit of writing, and some practice. The same practice that we did just now, offering up of your being and rising up with the flames with Agni, and trying to stay above your head in the vastness and the height, and just stationing yourself up there and seeing what it does to you. That, and along with that, the image that I had shown to you of how to sleep. So try, if those of us who resonate with the practice, try to sleep in a constant offering of your body up and see if it changes anything in the quality of your sleep. So yeah, thank you, and sorry for taking long. Yeah,
No problem. Thanks, Monica.
thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, James.
Thank you,
We'll meet
Monica. Thank you,
and
everyone. And see you all
bye-bye.
again tomorrow.
Thank
Namaste.
Bye-bye.